online classes. At the last class, we have discussed the chapter microbes in human welfare. So previous questions are here in Karnataka CET. So in this class, we will discuss another chapter, that is organism and populations. Ecology chapter is 15th unit. Ecology part, very important. The unit for board examination, both the CET as well as Neet. Right, in that chapter organism and populations, right? So 2014 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವು ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. So 2014 ನೋಡ್ರಿ, the success of mammals on earth is largely because the success of mammals they are able to survival on earth very large compared to other organisms. What is the reason why the mammals they are surviving largely on the earth? So they are given option. They can conform to the change in the environment. Wrong. Right? Conforms means where the organisms their body temperature changes with the ambient external temperature. So mammals they are regulators, right? They can reduce metabolic activity and go into a state of dormancy during unfavorable condition in the environment. It is not possible because almost not all the mammals they are showing such type of metabolic activity, right? The dormancy, which we see in case of seeds of higher plants, dormancy, the state of suspend mechanism during unfavorable conditions if they are unable to migrate, right? So dormancy is for seeds. They have able to maintain constant body temperature. Of course, mammals they are evolved as regulators. Mammals they are evolved as regulators. That means what here? So they are able to maintain constant homeostasis, constant internal environment, thermoregulation, osmoregulation. Thermoregulation means maintenance of constant internal body temperature. Whatever the temperature present outside externally, where these organisms have able to maintain constant internal temperature, right? Body temperature. So they are evolved as regulators. So that's why the success of mammals on earth is largely because they have ability to maintain constant body temperature. They can take care of their young ones as they have mammary glands to suckle. So that is Balla D Balla, option C is there already. Option C is the right answer. That means what? This question on the basis of how the organisms cope with the environmental factors or abiotic factors. We know that abiotic factors like temperature, abiotic factors. So both biotic and abiotic factors that influences the growth of organism, right? So growth of population, whether temperature, whether it is water, right? Or maybe soil, maybe light, like that. Different types of abiotic factors. For these abiotic factors, how the organism they can respond, right? Response to abiotic factor. How organism they are responding to abiotic factors. Either the organism have able to regulate to those abiotic factors. They can able to regulate temperature, osmotic balance, unfavorable soil nutrients, all those types, right? Either the organism they are unable to regulate, they are evolved into conform, where the internal environment changes with the external environment. That's why conformers. So those organisms, some of organisms, they are evolved as migrators, right? Migration. That means what? The organism leave their the habitat temporarily, and they are whenever there is an unfavorable condition, the environment or habitat it is not favors for the growth and development or survival temporarily during particular seasons, for example, right? the organisms they are moved to some other places, that is more hostile places, and after the certain time period, whenever the unfavorable condition is cleared, they return back to their original habitat. Such process it is called migration. We see in case of birds, right? Where the organisms they are unable to migrate, move, so they are enters into a suspend mechanism, delaying of development, right? Either it may be spore formation, suspend mechanism, either it is a sporulation process or it may be dormancy process, right? Or it may be diaphase, it may be estivation, or it may be hibernation, all these. The lower microorganisms see spore formation with unfavorable condition. If they are unable to migrate or move from from that unfavorable habitat to the favorable habitat, they forms the spores. They can protect from the unfavorable condition. Where some of the seeds of higher plants they enter into dormancy state, and that means what metabolic activity reduces. They are not migrate, right? If they are not migrate, so they enters into dormancy state. That diaphase means what? In the state of suspend mechanism, delaying of the development, especially seen in case of zooplanktons. Zooplanktons shows state of suspend mechanism, delaying of development, diaphase, right? Delaying the development of the organism. Estimation, hibernation. So here estimation, summer sleep, it is summer sleep. Hibernation, it is a winter sleep. During the summer season, where the organisms their metabolic activity reduces and hide somewhere in a place to escape from that harsh environment, right? By reducing metabolic activity during summer season, that means excess of temperature. During the colder condition or winter season, some of the organisms they are hibernate themselves with a reduced metabolic activity, what we call as winter sleep. When metabolic activity reduces, so utilization of ATP also decreases, that means reduces. So these are suspend mechanisms. If the organisms are able to migrate, right? That's why. So here mammals they are able to survive largely on Earth because these organisms they are able to regulate body temperature. That's why the mammals, the success of mammals on Earth is largely because they have ability to maintain. So these are abiotic factors. These are how the organisms respond to or cope with abiotic factors. ಯಾವ ತರ ಜೀವಿಗಳು ಈ ತರನಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಆ ಜೈವಿಕ ಕ್ರಿಯೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಅವನ್ನ ಯಾವ ತರ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಟೆಂಪರೇಚರ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ, ಟೆಂಪರೇಚರ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ, ಆಸ್ಮಾಟಿಕ್ ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ವೇರಿಯೇಷನ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆದ್ರೆ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಎಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಲೈಟ್ ಬೇಕಾ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಲೈಟ್ ಬೇಕಾ. These are the abiotic factors, right? Remember. And that abiotic factors, temperature, where the organisms they are able to tolerate wide range of temperature, narrow range of temperature. They are stenothermal organisms. So in case of water, urihalline, stenohalline, based on the salinity of the water, the organisms are able to regulate or unable to regulate, right? That's why. So abiotic factor and the responding mechanisms by the organisms. Next, second one of the following refers to Allen's rule. One of the following refers to Allen's rule ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದಾನೆ. So ಈ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಡಾಪ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಇದೆ. It is an adaptation is any attribute of organism it is able to survive and reproduce in that particular habitat or environment. How the organism have able to adapt, what are all the mechanism, whether it is morphological attribute or it is
physiological attribute or it is a behavioral attribute. That's why adaptation is any attribute, whether it is morphologically, physiologically, and behaviorally, that can make the organism to survive and reproduce in that particular geographical area. What we call as adaptation. Adaptations ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ರೂಲ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಏಲಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ರೂಲ್ ಇದೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಅದು ಏನು ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ರೈಟ್? If the stressful condition are localized or remain only for short duration, an organism either migrate or suspend itself. This is not a alien's rule, right? This is the how organism they respond, suspend and migration, right? Cope with the abiotic factor. Second one, D put in the option only. Mammals from colder climates have shorter ears and limbs to minimize heat loss. That is the alien's rule. What the alien's rule? What the alien's rule states? So alien's rule states that animals from colder climate, colder climate where temperature ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರತಕ್ಕಂತ ಪ್ರದೇಶಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇರತಕ್ಕಂತ animals, mammals especially. So they have shorter ear, shorter ear and limbs. To minimize heat loss. ತಮ್ಮ ದೇಹದಿಂದ ಉಷ್ಣಾಂಶ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಹೋಗದೇ ಇರೋ ತರ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಸ ಮಾಡತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಸಸ್ತನಿಗಳು, ಮ್ಯಾಮಲ್ಸ್, ಅವುಗಳ ರಚನೆ ಯಾವ ತರ ಇರುತ್ತೆ? ಸೊ ಅವುಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇಯರು ಚಿಕ್ಕದಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಇಯರ್ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಟೆಂಪರೇಚರ್ ಲಾಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, limbs ಕೂಡ ಚಿಕ್ಕದಾಗಿರ್ತವೆ. So that is alien's rule. Remember alien's rule. Some of the organisms, there below the skin there is the presence of a fatty tissue, what we call as blubber. It acts as insulator. Insulator ತರ act ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. It can prevent the loss of heat, right? Prevent the loss of heat. That's why B is the alien's rule. ನೋಡಿ, ಇದೇ ರೂಲ್ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಬರುತ್ತೆ ನಿಮಗೆ, ಒಂದು ಗಾಸಸ್ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಟಿವ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ಲೂಷನ್ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ ಅಂತ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಗಾಸಸ್ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಟಿವ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ಲೂಷನ್ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಈ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ alien's rule, ಅದೇ ತರ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಗಾಸಸ್ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಟಿವ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ಲೂಷನ್ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್. ಗಾಸಸ್ apostrophe s exclusion principle, competitive exclusion principle. If two close related organisms, they are competing for the same resource, cannot coexist with each other, and competitively inferior one is eventually eliminated from the environment. ಎರಡು ಜೀವಿಗಳು ತುಂಬಾ ಹತ್ರ ಇರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಜೀವಿಗಳು, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ತಮ್ಮ ಜಾತಿಗೆ ಹತ್ರ ಇರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ಲಿ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಸ್ಪೀಸೀಸ್, ಒಂದೇ ಜಾತಿ ಜೀವಿಗಳನ್ನ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. ದೇ ಆರ್ ಕಾಂಪಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸ್. ಒಂದೇ ತರನಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಸಂಪನ್ಮೂಲಗಳಿಗೆ ಎರಡೂ ಕೂಡ ಸ್ಪರ್ಧೆ ಏರ್ಪಟ್ಟಾಗ, ಅವುಗಳ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಸ್ಪರ್ಧೆ ಏರ್ಪಟ್ಟಾಗ ಆಹಾರಕ್ಕೆ, ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಯಾವ್ದೊಂದು ಆಹಾರ ಇರ್ತಪ್ಪ, ಅವೆರಡೂ ಜೀವಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಅದೇ ಆಹಾರ. ದೇ ಆರ್ ಕಾಂಪಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸ್. Resource include food and space, right? Both the organisms cannot coexist. ಎರಡು ಜೀವಿಗಳು ಸೊ ಒಂದೇ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಳವಣಿಗೆ ಆಗುವುದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದೇ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ. And ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಟಿವ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ಫೀರಿಯರ್ ಒನ್, ಯಾವುದು ಸ್ಪರ್ಧೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗೋದಿಲ್ವೋ, ವೀಕ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೋ, ದುರ್ಬಲವಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಜೀವಿ ಇರುತ್ತೋ, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎವೆನ್ಚುಯಲಿ ಎಲಿಮಿನೇಟೆಡ್. ಆ ಜೀವಿ ಬರ್ತಾ ಕಣ್ಮರೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. That is Gauss's competitive exclusion principle. Gauss's competitive exclusion principle. If two close related species competing for the same resources cannot coexist, and competitive one is eventually eliminated from the environment. ಅದು ಕೂಡ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. aliens ಕೂಡ ಒಂದು Gauss's principle ಒಂದು ಕೂಡ ನಿಮಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ನೆನಪಿಡಬೇಕು. So see, an organism can move from stressful habitat to more hospitable habitat and return when the stressful period is over. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವೇನ್ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀವಿ migration, what we call as migration. ನೋಡಿ ಸಿ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಲ್ಲ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಯಾವುದು migration means what an organism can move from a stressful habitat to more hospitable area and return when the stressful condition is over. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು migration ವಲಸೆ ಹೋಗೋದು ಅಂತೀವಿ. The example birds especially. D, low atmospheric pressure in higher altitude results in altitude sickness ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. That is not the statement here. Altitude sickness means what? The individuals they move to higher altitudes more than 3500 meter higher altitude ಅಂದ್ರೆ so ಮೇಲ್ಭಾಗಕ್ಕೆ ಏರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಪರ್ವತಗಳನ್ನು ಹತ್ತಾ ಇರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಗುಡ್ಡಗಾಡುಗಳನ್ನು ಹತ್ತಾ ಇರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ so more than 3500 meters ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಏರ್ತಾ ಇರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ where they are usually suffering from higher altitude sickness. They are suffering from altitude sickness, low atmospheric pressure. So here altitude sickness that leads to nausea, fatigue and heart palpitation. That means what? These are the symptoms of altitude sickness. ನಾವು ಹೈಯರ್ ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಪರ್ವತಗಳು ಗುಡ್ಡ ಹತ್ತಾ ಇರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಸೊ ನಮಗೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅವಾಗ ಏನೋ ವಾಕರಿಕೆ ಬಂದಾಗ ನಾಸಿಯಾ, ಫ್ಯಾಟಿಗ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸುಸ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಸ್ಟ್ರೈನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಪಾಲ್ಪಿಟೇಷನ್ ಹೃದಯದ ಬಡಿತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ವೇರ್ when we move to higher altitude oxygen level decreases. That's why our body has to compensate oxygen level by increasing the rate of respiration, breathing process, by decreasing the binding of hemoglobin to oxygen molecule. Automatically what happens when there is no sufficient oxygen molecule, where hemoglobin unable to bind the oxygen molecules, so number of RBC production automatically increases. So rate of RBC production increases. So the people who are surviving higher altitude usually they have more RBC compared to the normal ones they are surviving on the plane, right? That's why altitude sickness where body oxygen level compensation will be maintained by the increase of rate of breathing or respiration, decreasing the binding capacity of oxygen to hemoglobin or oxyhemoglobin, increase of RBC production. ನೋಡಿ ಇದು ಬರುತ್ತೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಏನು ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ here is the following is not the symptom of altitude sickness ಅಂತ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ altitude sickness ಮೇಲೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಅಡಾಪ್ಟೇಷನ್ how the organism adapted to higher altitude ಅಲ್ಲಿ altitude sickness ಏನು nausea, fatigue, heart palpitation, ಇನ್ನೊಂದೇನ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ವಾಮಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಂದೇನ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ right? So you ಮೂರು ಮೇನ್ ಇರತಕ್ಕಂತ altitude sickness symptoms, right? So ಈ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಇದೆಯಾ ಸೊ ಆತರ ಕೇಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಚಾನ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, right? ಆಗ select the correct one with respect to altitude sickness ಅಂತ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಸೊ ಏನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾನೆ, right? That's why D ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. Option B, mammals from colder climate have shorter ear and limbs to minimize the heat loss, right? That is the answer. Next, the interaction between the organisms of one of the following phase is an example for commensalism. Is an example for commensalism. We know that population interactions, ನೋಡಿ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಇಂಟರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಇಂದ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ಅರೈಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಒಂದು ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ನೀವು ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಓದ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಇಂಟರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಇಂದ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಟಿವ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅವೆಲ್ಲ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಇಂಟರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಒಂದು 4 ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ. Example to ಯಾವ interaction example here. So population interaction ಅನ್ನೋದಾದ್ರೆ how the it is intraspecific or interspecific interaction interaction. Intraspecific means within a species. Interspecific means between the species. The interaction occurs. That is called population interaction. Right? If two species are there, for example, two species, species 1, species 2 are there. If the interaction occurs between two species where both the species get benefited, ಎರಡೂ ಜೀವಿಗಳಿಗೂ ಪರಸ್ಪರ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಆದರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಸೊ ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಅನ್ನು ನಾವು ಇಂಡಿಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಬೆನಿಫಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಗೆ ನಾವು ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಅಂತ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. So such type of interaction, it is called mutualism. Mutualism. That interaction is called mutualism ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ ನಾವು. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವೇನು ಕರೀತೀವಿ? Mutualism ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. Right? If both the species, if the interaction between the two species where both the species get harmed, ಯಾವುದೇ ಜೀವ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಆಗಲಿಲ್ಲ, negative interaction ಆಯಿತು, that is called competition. Such type of interaction is called competition. ನಾವೇನು ಕರೀತೀವಿ? Competition ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. If both the species they are get interacted, one species get benefited, another species get harmed. Such type of interactions are called predation and parasitism. Predation and parasitism. If the interaction between the two organisms where one organism get benefited, another organism neither get benefited nor harmed, ಆ ಜೀವಿ ಉಪಯೋಗನೂ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ತೊಂದರೆನೂ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಆ ತರ ಇಂಟರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ನಾವೆಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ? ಕಮೆನ್ಸಾಲಿಸಮ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಆಸ್ commensalism. Such type of interaction is called commensalism. If the interaction between the two organisms where one organism get harmed, another organism or another species neither harmed nor benefited, that is called, that such type of interaction is called commensalism. Such type of interaction is called commensalism. ಇದು ಬಹಳ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್, ಇದನ್ನು ನೀವು ನೆನಪಿಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಯಾವಾಗ, ರೈಟ್? This is very important. So mutualism, competition, predation, parasitism, commensalism and amensalism. ಇದು ನಿಮಗೆ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬೆನಿಫಿಷಿಯಲ್, ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹಾರ್ಮ್ಫುಲ್, zero ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಲ್ ಇಂಟರಾಕ್ಷನ್. This is called positive interaction. This is called detrimental interaction or negative interaction. This is neutral interaction. Neutral, right? Neutral. ಸೊ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಅಂತ ಏನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ನೋಡಿ. ಮ್ಯೂಚುವಲಿಸಮ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಎರಡು ಜೀವ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಷನ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎರಡು ಜೀವಿಗಳು ದೇ ಆರ್ ಕಾಂಪೀಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸಸ್, ದೇ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಕೋಎಕ್ಸಿಸ್ಟ್, ಬೋತ್ ಆರ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಹಾರ್ಮ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ನೋಡಿ, ವ್ಯಾಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಫಿಗ್ ಟ್ರೀ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ವ್ಯಾಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಫಿಗ್ ಟ್ರೀ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅನ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಫಾರ್ ಮ್ಯೂಚುವಲಿಸಮ್. ವ್ಯಾಸ್ and fig tree. Fig tree ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹತ್ತಿ ಮರ, right? Where the fruits they contain vast, right? Vast the organisms. So here what happens here? Vast, they are searching a suitable environment or place or position for laying eggs, for oviposition, for oviposition. Where fig tree, there the flower provides a suitable condition for laying eggs. It lay eggs in the flower, right? Automatically what happens? Pollination occurs to fig tree, fig flowers. That is beneficial. Fig tree get benefited by pollination. So fig tree is pollinated by the wasp. Remember, it is a pollinating agent. Whereas for that purpose, where fig tree provides the space or position for laying of eggs, automatically, so that the seed is formed, the ovule seed is formed. Inside that, So here seed, this is a fruit. Number of seeds, sorry, this is number of seeds is a fruit. So seeds provides the nutrition for the larva of the wasps. When you open fruit, there is a number of wasps are there, right? They are get benefited. So this is an example for mutualism, not commensalism. Where fig tree get benefited by pollination, wasp will get benefited by oviposition. ಅದೇ ತರ ಇನ್ಯಾವ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಇದೆ mutualism ಗೆ both organ get benefited. For example, you can take lichens, right? Lichens. What do you mean by lichen? It is a symbiotic association between the fungi and algae, between mycobiont and pycobiont. What do you mean by mycobiont? Fungal component. Pycobiont means algal component. Algae are cyanobacteria, where both are get benefited. Fungi that can absorb the nutrients and provides to the algae. Instead, algae have able to photosynthesize, produces the sugars, provides the fungi. Both are mutually associated. Symbiotically they are living. That is an example for mutualism. You can take another example, that is mycorrhiza. Myco means fungi. Rhiza means root of higher plants. Right? It is an association between fungi and the roots of higher plants, where fungi are able to absorb the nutrients from the soil. Instead, the roots or the plant, it has able to provide the sugars for the fungi. This is an example for mutualism, mutualistic understanding between the two organisms, where both are get benefited and none of them harm. Right? And you can take the plant and its pollinating agents. Plants and pollinating agents, where plant get benefited by pollination. So without pollination, there is no seed, no fruit like that, right? That's right. And for that purpose, the plant provides nectar and is suitable place for oviposition to pollinating agents like insects and all other kinds. And pollination purpose, both are get benefited. ಅವುಗಳಿಗೆ nectar ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇವುಗಳಿಗೆ pollination ಆಗುತ್ತೆ plants. So pollination between the wasp here and fig tree. This was an example for mutualism. Remember, right? That's why first one commensalism ke baralla. Next, cuckoos and crow. Cuckoos and crow. It is an example for parasitism, especially brood parasitism. Brood parasitism. Remember, this is a question will be brood parasitism. It is a special type of parasitism seen in case of birds, where parasitic bird lay their eggs in a host organism and allow it for incubation, for hatching, right? For hatching. So where cuckoo or quail is unable to create or construct a nest, so that cuckoo, it can lay eggs to crow's nest. ಹೋಗಿದೆ ಕಾಗೆಯ ಗೂಡಲ್ಲಿ ಮೊಟ್ಟೆಗಳನ್ನ ಇಡುತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ಗೂಡ ನಿರ್ಮಾಣ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಶಕ್ತವಾಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಬರದೇ ಇರೋ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಏರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕಾಗೆಯ ಗೂಡುಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ತನ್ನ ಮೊಟ್ಟೆಗಳನ್ನ ಕಾಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಡುತ್ತೆ. Right? So it depends on crow's nest for their continuation of generation, for their hatching the eggs, cuckoo eggs. So it is an example for brood parasitism. This is example for brood parasitism. Parasitism is where one or parasitic organism depends on the host organism to obtain their nutrition. Either it may be ectoparasitism or endoparasitism. Ectoparasitism, obtaining of nutrition by parasitic organism outside the host. Inside the host are that is endoparasitism. Right? ಅದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು parasitism brood parasitism, example cuckoos and crows. Next, cattle or sheep and grass. Cattle, sheep and grass, grass it is a producers. So the plants, they are producers. first trophical level, they are producers. You know, cow and there is cattle and sheep. These are primary consumers, generally called herbivorous animals. These are herbivorous animals, where the one organ feeds another organism. This is an example for predation. Example for predation, right? Predation, predating. Where herbivorous, these are predators. Grass, it is a prey. With respect to plants, right? Next, orchid and mango tree. That is an example for commensalism. Orchid. That means orchid grow on the branch of the mango tree, where orchid get benefited by absorbing the nutrients from the mango tree branch, whereas mango tree neither get benefited nor harmed. It shows neutral. That's why. So orchids on mango tree is an example for commensalism. Remember. And another example you can take. So here orchid and mango tree is an example, right? Where cattle aggregates and grazing cattle and grazing cattle. Cattle aggregates and grazing cattle. During grazing time, cattle they can flushes in the grass. Automatically, insects they are comes out. So it breeds they are unable to identify, detect, search the insects where they are present near to the grazing cattle, and whenever there is a flushes, it's the breed automatically they are comes out immediately catch the insects by the egg breeds. Where cattle like this get benefited, but the grazing cattle they are neither benefited nor harmed. So barnacles on the specifically present on the tentacles of the sea anemone. Barnacles, barnacles on the back of the whales, right? Back of the whales. Remember, clownfish, tentacles of sea anemone. Sea anemone. These are an example for commensalism. Where sea anemone tentacles neither benefited nor harmed, but plant fishes they get benefited from the enemies. They can hide, they can escape from the enemies. Where barnacles on the back of the whale, they get food because whales they can move very faster in the water for the searching of the food. So whales they neither get benefited nor harmed, barnacles get benefited. So that's why. So these are all the examples for commensalism. Very important to remember. Right? Barnacles. So here cattle and breeds and grazing cattle, orchids growing on mango tree, the branch of the mango tree, for example. That's why option D is the right answer. Option D is the right answer. Next, you 2014 ಕೇಳಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ questions. 2016 ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ನೋಡ್ರಿ. 15 ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ, 16 ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. All the following interactions are mutualism. All the following interactions are mutualism except ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. So examples ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. Association of fungi and roots of higher plants in mycorrhiza. Of course, that is an example for mutualism. Fungi and roots of higher plants. An example for mutualism. Association of cattle breed and grazing cattle. This is commensalism. This is a commensalism where one species get benefited, other species neither benefited nor harmed. So cattle breeds and grazing cattle is an example for commensalism, not the mutualism. It is an example for commensalism. Association of organ fungi in case of lichens. that is called mutualism. Plant and animal relation for pollination, that is also mutualism. Now we already explained it. Option B, association of cadet and basic cadet is not an example for mutualism. Right? Option B is the right. Next. A population is correctly defined as having which of the following characteristics. A population, ಅಂದ್ರೆ population definition ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಯಾವ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಇದೆ population ಕರೆಯಬೇಕು. A population is correctly defined as having which of the following character. A, inhabiting the same geography or geographical area. That is correct. They are present, they are surviving in a particular the same geographical area. B, individuals belonging to same species. Of course, the species, that means the number of individuals of same species which are surviving in a specific geographical area, a particular geographical area, those interaction, and it is a population. ಆತನಾಗಿರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ರೀತಿ ನಾವು ಜೀವಿಗಳ ಗುಂಪಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. Possessing a constant and uniform density and dispersion, that is wrong. ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಇರಬೇಕಂತ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, because population will be grown. Population density, it may fluctuate. Population density may fluctuate either by mortality, immigration. Right? Population density ಒಂದೇ ತರ ಇರಬೇಕಂತ ಏನು ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಒಂದ್ಸರಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಆ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಜೀವಿಗಳು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆದಾಗ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಯಾವುದ್ರ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ವಸ್ತಿ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ರೈಟ್? ದಟ್ಸ್ ವೈ ಸಿ ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಡೆಫಿನಿಷನ್ ಗೆ. ಎ ಮತ್ತೆ ಬಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಎ ಮತ್ತು ಬಿ ಏನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ? ಆಪ್ಷನ್ ಸಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆಪ್ಷನ್ ಸಿ ಇಸ್ ದ ರೈಟ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, Cornell's field experiment on the Rocky Sea coast of Scotland, where larger barnacle balanus, barnacles is type of arthropods. Larger barnacles ಯಾವುದು? balanus is a larger barnacle. Dominates the intertidal area and removes the smaller barnacle, Cathamalus. Smaller barnacles. This happened due to, remember. So, you know that two closely related species, they are competing for same resources, they cannot coexist. But this is not always true. Remember, where if the organism is able to increase its feeding area, automatically inferior ones will be eventually eliminated. Though the resources are abundant, resources are not the limiting factors. In not all the cases, resources are not the limiting factors. Where competitive release occurs, competition is what happens? Competition release occurs. So here where larger barnacles, they are dominates the smaller barnacles, occurs in case of competition. Because of what? Because of competition. Remember, because of competition. Competition occurs not only close related species, it occurs totally unrelated species. Right? For example, tortoise, Hawaiian tortoise and goats, where resources need not be a limiting factor. Resources ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಷನ್ ಏರ್ಪಡ್ತಿದ್ದಲ್ಲ. ಎಷ್ಟಿದ್ರು ಕೂಡ ಕೆಲವೊಂದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಷನ್ ಏರ್ಪಡುತ್ತೆ ಡ್ಯೂ ಟು ರೇಸಿಂಗ್ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ. So this will be happens because of competition, right? That's why option A option A is the right answer. Next, in which type of interactions both interacting organisms do not live close together? Where the type of interaction where both organisms get harmed. Both organisms cannot coexist, they are not surviving, they are live together. Such type of interaction is called competition. It is called competition interaction. So the option C is there. So parasitism one organ get benefited, another organism harmed. So predation ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಬರುತ್ತೆ, that is also same, one organ get benefited, another organ get harmed. Mutualism ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ mutualism ಏನು ಬರುತ್ತೆ, both the organisms get benefited. That's like competition. Is it? Also that is option B is the right answer. Next, Psamophytes. Psamophytes, they are growing on the deserts areas, right? That means growing on the stone areas. That's why desert. Psamophytes are growing on deserts, not rocks. Dry soil, water, shades, and that's why deserts is the right answer. Deserts. Next, a plant shows the following modifications. Any modification given for the plants, leaves leaves covered with the dense hairs. Leaves, they are covered with the dense hairs. ಎಲೆಗಳು ಯಾವ್ದು ಕವರ್ ಆಗಿವೆ, so dense hairs ಇಂದ ಕವರ್ ಆಗಿವೆ. Dense hairs. Second modification, leaf surface shiny and glabrous. Leaf surface ಏನಿದೆ, shiny ಆಗಿದೆ, ಹೊಳಿತಾ ಇದೆ, glabrous. Leaf blade remains rolled during day. Leaf blade ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಈ ಭಾಗ, ಎಲೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಮುದುಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು. Right? Bulliform operators ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ they are rolled. Right? ಏನಕ್ಕೆ that adaptation ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಆ ಥರ adaptation ಆಗಿದೆ ಆ ಒಂದು ಸಸ್ಯಗಳು? Right? Conserve water, prevent excessive heat, check transpiration, absorb water. The right answer is check transpiration. Check transpiration. What is transpiration? Loss of water in the form of vapors. So ಯಾವ ಸಸ್ಯಗಳು ಒಂದು ಎಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಟೆಂಪರೇಚರ್ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಏರಿಯಾಗಳಿಗೆ ಅಡಾಪ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು, ಸೊ ಅವುಗಳು ಏನಾಗಿತ್ತಪ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ to minimize transpiration, to check the transpiration process, they are adapted. The leaves are covered by dense hair, the shaggy and glabrous. So because of presence of bulliform operators, where the leaf blades they are remains rolled daytime, so ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ರೋಲ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅವಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ರೋಲ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನೈಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಡೇ ಟೈಮ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಈ ತರ ರೋಲಿಂಗ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Right? So ಆದ್ರಿಂದ ಅವೆಲ್ಲವೂ ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ to check transpiration, process. Right? That is the answer. Right? That is the right answer. Next, 10th one. MacArthurs of 5 closely related species warblers living on the same tree were able to avoid competition and coexist by behavioral difference. This is an example for competitive release, resource partitioning, competitive exclusion principle, adaptive radiation. Adaptive radiation is evolution chapter. Resource partition is an example for resource partitioning. Resource partitioning. What is resource partitioning? If the two species, closely related species, they are surviving or competing for the same resource, instead of competition, they avoid competition. They release competition. Right? They can partition in the different patterns. Either it is foraging time or pattern pattern may different. ಜೀವಿಗಳು ಒಂದೇ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಷನ್ ಏರ್ಪಡಿಸುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡಾಗ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿದಂಗೆ ತಮ್ಮ ಆಹಾರವನ್ನ ಬೇರೆ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇರೆ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಉಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ರೀತಿಯಿಂದ ಅವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತವೆ, ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಷನ್ ನ ಅವಾಯ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತವೆ. ದೇ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಅವಾಯ್ಡ್ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಷನ್. Avoid competition by partitioning of the resource. ಇಲ್ಲಿ 5 warblers, ನಾಲ್ಕು 5 warblers ಅಂದ್ರೆ 5 different types of birds, chirping birds ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ನಾವು. So ಆ birds ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತವೆ, some of the birds they are feeding in this region, some birds in this region, some birds in this region, some birds here in this region, like that, some birds here in this region. They are partitioning the resources so that they are close related species, they are coexist with each other. How? By partitioning the resources. ಆ ಜೀವಿಗಳು ಒಂದೇ ಜಾತಿ ಜೀವಿಗಳಾಗಿದ್ರು ಕೂಡ ಅವುಗಳ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಷನ್ ಏರ್ಪಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಅವಾಯ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಯಾಕೆ? ಫೊರೇಜಿಂಗ್ ಟೈಮ್, ಆಹಾರ ಉಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಸಮಯ, ಆಹಾರ ಉಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ವಿಧಾನ ಬೇರೆ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇರೆ ಸ್ಥಳಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಸೊ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಆಟೋಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ದೇ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆಹಾರ ನಾವು ಪಾರ್ಟಿಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಫಾರ್ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಷನಿಂಗ್. ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ಲೂಷನ್ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ ಏನು? ಕ್ಲಾಸಸ್ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ಲೂಷನ್ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ ವೇರ್ two closely related species competing for the same resources cannot coexist with each other. Right? Competitive release ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? here ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದ್ವಲ್ಲ Barnacles, that is competitive release. Goats, abandoned tortoise and the goats in the shallow lake. Right? What happens? Goats, because of grazing capacity is more. Unrelated species competition ಏರ್ಪಡುತ್ತೆ. Grazing capacity ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದ್ದಾಗ, goat grazing capacity ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇತ್ತು, tortoise eventually eliminated. Right? Next. 2018 ನಲ್ಲಿ the interaction between cuckoos and crows is an example for that is brood parasites, right? Brood parasites. The 12th question, Warhol's formula logistic growth is described by the equation dn by dt is equal to r into n into k minus n divided by k, where r and k represents ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. This is a logistic growth model equation, Warhol's formula equation or logistic growth equation. So dn by dt is equal to r into n into k minus n divided by k, where r is what? So r is taken from what? Nodi now exponential growth model alli, so during while study the population fluctuation, where population density at time t plus 1, our population density at time t plus 1 is equal to population density at time t nt plus where number of births d plus number of immigrations, right, minus number of death plus emigration e. This is the formula. Birth means what? That is natality. Immigration means number of organisms they are comes from elsewhere and they are joins the population and automatically population increases, density increases, n increases. Death means nothing but mortality, number of organisms that died, where population density decreases. Emigration is what? Number of individuals that left the population and gone to elsewhere. Population decrease. This is now automatically population density at time t plus 1 ಬರುತ್ತೆ. You know, exponential growth model ಅಲ್ಲಿ population density at time t is dn by dt. Population density at time t is dn by dt is equal to birth minus death, birth rate minus death rate into initial population, where we can take b minus d is equal to r. What do you mean by r? Intrinsic rate of natural increase. R means what? Intrinsic rate of natural increase. Remember. So dn by dt is equal to r into n. Whereas in case of exponential logistic growth model, so logistic growth model means what? Initially the organism, that is population, grow very well. Whenever the resources are limited, food and space are limited, during that time what happens? Initially growth occurs, and when the resources they are limited, where the growth will be declines, population growth declines. That we obtain a lag phase, exponential phase, constant phase, decline phase. Right? That means an environment have able to increases the population at a certain period of time up to the presence of the resources. If the resources they are limited, what happens here? Resources are limited. The environment has its own kind of limiting factor. It is called carrying factor. K means what? Carrying factor. ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ವಾತಾವರಣ ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಲಿಮಿಟ್ ಇರಬೇಕು, ರೈಟ್? ಇದು ಲಿಮಿಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಯಾರಿ ಮಾಡೋ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ ಎಷ್ಟಪ್ಪ? ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ಈಗ ನನ್ನ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು 10 kg ಕ್ಯಾರಿ ಮಾಡಿ 20 kg ಕೂಡ ಕ್ಯಾರಿ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ನನ್ನ ಕ್ಯಾರಿಂಗ್ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ ಎಷ್ಟು? 10 kg. ಅದೇ ತರ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಒಂದು ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಕ್ಯಾರಿಂಗ್ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ, ಕ್ಯಾರಿ ಮಾಡೋ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ. ಅದು ನಾವು ಏನು ಕರಿತೀವಿ? ಕೆ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, right? Whereas R and K represents intrinsic rate of natural increase, carrying capacity. Option B alli nodri. Option B, intrinsic rate of natural increase, carrying capacity. Next, 2019. In amphibians and reptiles, the body temperature changes corresponding to external temperature. Where the organisms they show such kind of response interpreted as conformers, because those organisms are unable to maintain constant internal temperature. They are not evolved as regulators, they are evolved as conformers. So thermoregulation is energetically expensive process, remember, right? That's why they are conformers. 14th question, assertion. The monarch butterfly feeds on poisonous weeds during its caterpillar stage. That's why they get benefited, so that they are unable to catch by the predators. Reason, okay? It helps the butterfly to become a disaster to the predators. That is correct, right? A is true and R is the correct explanation. So because of feeding of poisonous weed during caterpillar stage, monarch butterfly it has disaster to its predators. That is the correct reason. R is the correct reason for assertion. Option A is the correct. Next, from the given options, identify the correct combination of population interaction that correspond to the symbols. Symbols ಏನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವರು ನೋಡಿ, ಈ ಸಿಂಬಲ್ here this symbol plus 0 ಅಂತ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈ ಸಿಂಬಲ್ ಏನು ಬರುತ್ತೆ? both are get benefited, both organs get benefited, it is mutualism. ಈ ಸಿಂಬಲ್ both are get harmed, it is competition. One organ get benefited, another neither benefited nor harmed, this is called commensalism. That's why mutualism, competition and commensalism. Option D is the option D is the right answer, right? Next, which of the following feature of plant is not helpful to adapt in the desert life? Xerophytic ಆಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವುದು ಅಡಾಪ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. Leaves modified into spines, that is an adaptation. They are surviving in the desert area. Presence of sunken stomata present deep into the pits, what we call as sunken stomata. In the surface area stomata illirutte, pits root, adike sunken stomata is a modification or adaptation where the plant survival in the desert or xerophytic nature. Absence of trichomes on leaf surface, this is not helpful. The presence or absence is not helpful for adapting in the desert life. Presence of thick cuticle is very helpful, right? To check transpiration, rate of transpiration decreases because of thick cuticle, to conserve water, right? So option C, absence of trichomes on leaf surface is the right answer. Next, in the following equation, Warhorst formula of logistic growth. definition sorry logistic growth model exponential growth model ಅದರದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಮತ್ತೆ ಗ್ರಾಫ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ರೈಟ್ ಸೊ J shaped curve ಯಾವುದು exponential growth dn by dt is equal to r into n sigma growth ಯಾವುದು dn by dt is equal to r into n into k minus n divided by k right so ಇದು unlimited resources unlimited ಇದೇನಿದು limited resources it is not realistic it is more realistic ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಕೇಳಿದರೆ r denotes ಏನಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ r ಏನಿದೆ ನೀವು ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಹೌದು 2018 ಕೇಳಿದ್ರು 20 ಅದೇ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಕೇಳಿದರೆ that is r is the rate of intrinsic rate of natural increase ಹೌದಲ್ವಾ carrying capacity k population density n eccentric rate ಅದು ಬರಲ್ಲ ರೈಟ್ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ 18th ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ the shape of the pyramids reflects the growth status of the population identify the type of age pyramid so population attribute ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದಾಗ population attributes characters ನೋಡಿದಾಗ where birth rate death rate sex ratio age these are the population attributes so number of births per capita number of death per capita of death sex ratio that means male and female ratios age pyramid means what here in the population how many individuals they are in the reproductive stage how many individuals they are pre-reproductive stage how many individuals they are post-reproductive stage and then now correct out here what happens where specifically in a particular geographical area age is distributed with the population you get a specific graphical representation that is an age pyramid called as age pyramid either age pyramid is expand age pyramid how if number of pre-reproductive individuals so this is pre-reproductive this is post-reproductive so here number of individuals that pre-reproductive stage more than the post and reproductive stage automatically this population will be increases expanding age pyramid that we are giving now if the number of individuals in pre-reproductive stage and reproductive stage automatically they are same this is called what constant stable ಅಥವಾ constant stable ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗಲ್ಲ stable type so here for example male female here also male female ಅಂತ ನಾವು distribute ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ if number of pre-reproductive individuals they are less than reproductive and post-reproductive individuals this is pre-reproductive this is reproductive this is post-reproductive then it is population sorry age pyramid is decline is pyramid ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ pre-reproduction ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ individuals ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ next population ಆಗಿ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ age right age distribution ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ age individual pre-reproductive individuals ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದೆ ಆಟೋಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕಲಿ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ ರೈಟ್ ದಟ್ಸ್ ವೈ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಏಜ್ ಪಿರಮಿಡ್ ಅದು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ದಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ಡಿಕ್ಲೈನಿಂಗ್ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಇದೆ ಡಿಕ್ಲೈನಿಂಗ್ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ನೋಡಿ ಈ ತರ ಇದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಟೇಬಲ್ ಈ ತರ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ expanding that's why declining option C ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ option C is the right answer right ಎಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ನೋಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು so these are all some of the questions which are appears previous years Karnataka CET papers, right? So Neet allo kuda questions ಕೇಳಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಅವು ನಾವು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಸಪರೇಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಇದೇ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ನೀಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್ ಯಾವಾಗ ಬಂದಿದಾವೆ right 2014 ಇಂದ ಮತ್ತೆ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಏನು ಬಂದಿದೆ right so this is about the organisms and populations previous years questions solved questions from 2014 to 2020 the next class will discuss other chapter right another chapter right